Hello, everybody. Happy November 5th, 2020. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, I'm pleased to have the fifth-year head coach for the new Canaan boys basketball program, also the PE teacher, Danny Melzer. Danny, it's great to have you on, man.
Thanks for having me, Christopher. Crazy day in Connecticut sports with all the news breaking out. So this is good timing.
I know it's great to be able, happened a lot with football as far as when the news broke and then I'd have an interview and being able to kind of talk about it. It's one thing to talk about it like a day or two after when you can kind of digest it and brainstorm with other people. It's another thing where it's 2 hours and then you don't have a lot of time to think and now you're just kind of read and reacting.
Yeah. We're this is brand new. So I hope I don't say anything I shouldn't say. I'll try not to. But you know, it's um, it- it's certainly something that we thought could be a possibility. Even a few months ago, we thought that might be a possibility. So I can't say I'm totally surprised, but it's something that we're ready to tackle and you know take it on.
It's something that we will be talking about the mask wearing and what came out with the CIEC later on. But first, I want to talk about yourself, coach, as far as kind of like your background, because I know you played for College. You have a pretty rich background as far as kind of just your overall with basketball. So kind of just give me a breakdown as far as your career path leading the way to College.
Yeah, so I played basketball and baseball in high school, and I probably was a better baseball player in high school than I was basketball, but my passion was basketball. So I pursued that in college. I started out at Franklin and Marshall, and it didn't work out that there. So I transferred to College my sophomore year and played the next 3 years there for Tom Satrin. And you know, it was a great experience. Some of my teammates are still some of my best friends that I have today. It was playing college basketball is a tremendous experience and one I'll never forget. And it led me into coaching. That wasn't my plan when I graduated college, but my high school coach Jim Moriarty reached out to me when I graduated and said, "Hey, we need a freshman coach. Would you be interested in coaching?" And 22-year-old kid with no money, he says it pays $4,000. $4,000 to me was, man, that was like $1 million. So I said, sure, let's, I don't have a job. Let's do it. And the first day of practice, I went in there really not knowing what to expect, and I loved it. And right from that day forward, I knew right away that I wanted to be a coach, for the rest of my life. And so, but I obviously knew I couldn't just be a coach. You can't make a living being a high school basketball coach. So that kind of led me to deciding to become a teacher. So I went back to school to gain my certification in education, and taught 2 years at Trinity Catholic Middle School, and was athletic director there. And that really gave me a lot of great experience. And then eventually I got a teaching job at Stanford High. I was assistant coach with Mo for 7 years, and then he took the AD job. So I applied for the head job at Stanford High and got it, where I was a coach there for 4 years. Gained a tremendous amount of experience there. A lot of bumps, a lot of mistakes that I made that I learned from. Mo was a great mentor to me and really helped me through that. And so after 4 years there, the New Canaan opportunity came up. It was a very, very difficult decision for me because, I'm a Stanford guy. I born and raised in Stanford. I still live in Stanford. I went to Stanford High, played there. I loved it. I loved Stanford. It was a very difficult decision for me, but one that I made ultimately for the best of my family. And it's really worked out. I'm very happy in New Canaan. I've met a lot of great people, and it's been a great experience so far.
Do you think that kind of when you went back to your alma mater, being, as young as you were, 22 years old, in some ways you could still, because you weren't that far removed from high school. I mean, it was 4 years, 3 years, whatever. I mean, comparing on the age. But the point I'm trying to make is that with you being so close to the age of the high school players, you can connect to them quicker. Not, disrespecting your mentor by any means, but just that you can kind of speak their language a little bit and having that connectivity maybe sped up your coaching as far as that learning curve. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. It was, it was a really good situation for me because I was able to be in a place where I was comfortable, where I was familiar, being my old my alma mater, and I was able to work with two great coaches, two mentors, James Jordan, Jimmy J, and Mo. And so Mo gave me the freedom to be who I am and do things the way I saw fit within the context of his program. And so I was able to learn on the job and learn from him and learn from JJ. And so it was really a perfect fit for me to start there. And I wouldn't be a head coach today if I hadn't started there. So I'm really thankful that I got that opportunity.
So what was your duties for that first year with Stanford? What was your job as far as a coach was concerned?
So I was the head freshman coach, and back then Stanford High only had one gym. So uh, we would practice in the same gym as the varsity team, but we would only have one hoop. And so we do our half court stuff, and then anytime Mo would talk to the team, the varsity team, he would yell, "Hold the basketballs while I'm talking." And so like we had to find when we could play in between his talking and coaching. So it was a very different experience for me the first year. The following year, Stanford High built a second gym, so the freshman team could now practice in the other gym. So I got my own practice, and I got to design some stuff in the full court and in the half court. It was what I decided as a freshman coach was that my main job was to prepare these kids to play varsity basketball someday. Not all of them were gonna, you're not gonna take every freshman and they're not gonna all turn into varsity basketball players. But I wanted to make sure that when Mo got kids that played for me, he was going to get kids that were really disciplined, knew how to box out and take charges and do the and play the right way. And hopefully, I would develop their skills as well. I mean, in Stanford. You're usually typically going to get really good athletes, but I wanted to make sure he wasn't just getting good athletes, but he was getting good young men with a good basketball understanding. And so I really focused a lot more on teaching the game their freshman season than I really focused on winning games. Certainly during the games, I'm coaching to win, but all of my practices, all of my mindset was around developing them and getting them ready for the varsity level and not really so much winning games.
And that, what you just said about kind of, or not kind of, but how Stanford has a lot of athletes and they've always had a lot of athletes. And I think that's something that a lot of people, and, I've been broadcasting the NVL for, I don't even know how many years. I think it's 4 or 5 years now. It's been so long, I even forgot how long I started ago. But the point I'm trying to make is Waterbury in particular is rich as far as having athletic basketball players,
Sure.
but not all of them you could say are basketball players. They're athletes who just are using their athletic ability but don't know the game as well. And I think that's something that you just said about making sure that they knew the fundamentals, knew how to take charges, knew how to box out, knew how to rebound, which
Hmm.
I don't know about you, but in the NVL the last 2 years, rebounding is like a lost art. And I just don't understand why. But I think that's great to be able to have a coach, as yourself was as a freshman, to know the intricacies of the game and make sure they were prepared when they went to the varsity level.
Yeah, I just, I wanted to make sure that Mo's job, because I remember Mo did so much teaching at the varsity level, and when I first took the job, I talked to him about that, and he said, our youth program in Stanford, it's not like one program that's geared towards something, and then they all go to Stanford High. You've got Stanford High, you've got West Hill, you've got Trinity back then, you've got King, you've got St. Luke's, you've got all these different schools that kids go to, and so the feeder program is very difficult to establish. So essentially, your freshman team is your feeder program. So I wanted to make sure that the feeder program was producing kids that were prepared from a mental standpoint, from a discipline standpoint, and from a fundamental standpoint. So, uh, my practices weren't the most fun. We didn't do a whole lot of scrimmaging, but these kids learned how to play basketball, and I think Mo will tell you, my first freshman team was Chris Evans and Mike Tisha and those guys. That was the 2009 FCX championship team when they were seniors. And then the next three freshman teams that I had all made the FCI playoffs. Two of them made the FCI championship, and one of them made the FCI semis. So that 4-year run of my first four freshman teams was probably one of the best runs Stanford High has had in, since probably the early 90s. So, I think there was a direct correlation. I mean, granted, we had good players. The good players are always the most important thing. Don't get me wrong, but I think there was a direct correlation between those kids um, having a good foundation and their success at the varsity level. And when you're playing for a great coach like Mo, you mentioned Crosby. Coach at Crosby, Gilly. He's obviously one of the all-time greats. We've scrimmaged them a bunch of times. We ran into them in the state tournament a bunch of times. I mean, BJ Montero, Anthony Ireland,
Let's go.
Rogers,
Yeah.
the kid Davis. I saw he had 41 points last night. We scrimmaged them last year. He was awesome. I mean, Waterbury's really had some really good players. So, but getting back to what you were talking about, having a good foundation really helps build a solid program, and that's how I've modeled my own programs at Stanford High and now at New Canaan, is really valuing the freshman team, really valuing getting off to a good start.
That's kind of how Jelly does. I mean, he's the godfather of basketball. At least I know he's the godfather of the NVL. You mentioned about all the talented players that have come out of Crosby. Another player that, I don't know if you know this name, but I think you will. He's going to be a sophomore, Jason Robinson.
Is
I've
he
had
tall?
him.
Big kid?
He's a tall kid, but he's not big, but he's tall.
Yeah.
I saw him because I work at ShopRite in Waterbury, and he showed up to my work and came up to me, and I was like, did you grow like 5 feet? And
Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, oh, well, I can see.
Yeah.
But I had him on right when this pandemic started, when I got this podcast going. And he told me, and I didn't know this, even when I talked to him many times before games. And he said, my goal is to break Rogers' record, which
Wow.
is the point scoring record that
Yeah.
even Justin Davis, I don't think, broke. But the point I'm trying to make is that Jelly has built that culture. I mean, you talk about the freshman program, how, it's a feeder. In some ways, Crosby, I think, is the same way, because you have the Wilbys, you have the Kennedys, you have Career Academy, you
Mm-hmm.
have the two parochial schools with Holy Cross and Sacred Heart. So Crosby's having to find ways to get kids, and if, what they get is what they get. And
Yeah.
I've been there before with the JV team, because they don't have a freshman team, they have a JV team.
Okay.
But the way they coach and the way they're on those kids left and right, so when they get to All Jelly, they're good to go and they're ready to deal with it.
Yeah. He's done a phenomenal job. I have a lot of respect for him and his program. I try to scrimmage them any chance we get, because it's always going to be a competitive scrimmage. It's always going to be challenging, and they're going to defend us the entire, from the time the ball
Yep.
goes up in the air, they're going to defend us. So it was a great scrimmage for us last year, and we used to scrimmage them a lot at Stanford High. He's done a great job, and I know the kid you're talking about because he played in our scrimmage, and Coach Argelli actually was talking about him before the scrimmage, that this is going to be the next one. So it's it'll be interesting to watch his career evolve.
How difficult was it for you as far as leaving your alma mater? I mean, I know it probably sounds like a dumb question, but I know because just from the quotes I've read about when you did leave, it really sounded like it hit you harder than it would if it was just another coach who went to just a school and then left, because you bleed Stanford. That's where you, in some ways, could say grew up to where you are now.
Yeah, it was an incredibly difficult decision. There were so many factors that were so difficult for me. Yes, it was my alma mater, and yes, I live in Stanford, but I also taught there, and they gave me really my first teaching job. Mo, I played for Mo when I was a player, I played for Mo, and then my first coaching job, Mo gave me that opportunity. And Mo, when I got the head job, Mo kind of told me, like, listen, you're the fourth coach in Stanford High in the last, I don't know, 80, 90 years. There was three. It was Herm Allswinger, and the coach before him. They all had like 30-year stints. So, Mo was anticipating that happening with me too, and I was too. I didn't think I'd ever leave Stanford High. So I really felt like I was letting him down. I was letting Stanford High down. But I just got an opportunity to go to New Canaan, and I've got three young kids, and it was just an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. it was incredibly difficult for me to walk away from Stanford High. I miss it still to this day. I miss the people, but at the same time, this has been a really good move for me and my family. I'm very happy in New Canaan, and it's a great place, and so it's something that I certainly miss Stanford High, but at the same time, I'm really happy in New Canaan, and I'm looking forward to staying there for a very long time.
There's a quote that you said when you started coaching at New Canaan, and you said, "I didn't realize how little kids played basketball. When I got here, I could see that it wasn't just football and lax. All our kids play multiple sports." And I can only imagine how difficult that was because I've heard that from coaches I've had on about how when a kid plays multiple sports, being able to have that focus and I'm all for having kids play multiple sports. They should. It's their choice if they want to or if they don't.
Mhm.
But when you have a player who plays only one sport, you can almost see kind of that learning curve with the sport is a lot shorter than one if, like you said, you play basketball and you play baseball, you know, and some kids can do both. Some are better at one, some are better at the other. But having one kid play one sport instead of multiple kind of keeps that learning curve at a shorter length.
Yeah, so let me just explain that quote a little bit. So, from an
Mm,
outsider's perspective, New Canaan has always been known as a football and lacrosse town.
mm,
When I got to New Canaan, I didn't realize that it wasn't only football and lacrosse that kids play. They play soccer, they play tennis, they play baseball, they play stuff that's not even in the school, like squash and crew, and so they're so busy. They just have so many other things going on in their lives. So it's not the multi-sport piece that was difficult, was a challenge for us. It was the fact that the multi-sport athletes, when I first got there, really only played basketball during basketball season. So I played baseball, but during baseball season, I still played AAU basketball. Like I always had a basketball in my hand, even during baseball season. For the kids that when we got there, the kids who played multiple sports, which was most of them, the only time they touched the basketball was December to February. And so it's really difficult to be good at basketball if you're only playing it 3 months a year. Granted, there are some phenomenal athletes out there that can pull it off, but they're few and far between. So what we realized, me and my staff realized, is that we've got to find ways to get them more involved in the off season, even if they're playing other sports. Find ways for them um, to play basketball and get and improve their skills and to play more basketball. So we signed them up for fall leagues, we signed them up for spring leagues and summer leagues. They went to some camps, they went to some clinics, and before you knew it, more and more kids started committing year round, even finding time between their sports to still work on basketball, and that played a major role in turning the program around.
do you think that maybe that was the reason why the slow start? I mean, the first 2 years, 931.
Right.
So, and I'm sure that was one of them. I think there was a lot of reasons why, but do you think maybe that was one of the bigger reasons?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there was a lot of reasons. We had, it's anytime you have a new coach, it's going to take there's going to be an adjustment period. So, the first year there was a very senior laden team. These are kids that had played, for the same coach for 3 years, and then you got a new coach coming in with a totally new philosophy, and that's a tough spot to be for a kid. Not to mention we got hit hard, really hard with injuries that year. A lot of our key players went down. One of our co-captains missed the entire season with a torn ACL. Our point guard was hurt for a long time. So it was like the perfect storm of everything that just went against us. So, um, and then when you're rebuilding a program, there's going to be that element of, yeah, we've got to build it, at the varsity level, but our mindset was we've got to really start this at the freshman level. So, there were times our first 2 years where our entire coaching staff went to freshman practice and really spent a lot of time working with the freshmen. So we probably put more emphasis on freshman basketball our first 2 years than any other program, because we knew that's where we were going to have to build this from. And it helped incredibly that our first two freshman classes, which was last year's senior class and this year's senior class, were really talented. So it was we were lucky in that sense, but we also made a major commitment to building this from the ground up, so to speak.
I just want to hit on that because it really does seem like the freshman aspect is huge as far as being able, and I've always said you need a feeder program. You need something to be able to get players to come in. Otherwise, you're going to fall behind the eight ball real quick because other teams will get ahead of you. Do you think because you started off as a freshman coach, your appreciation for the freshman program itself and understanding that you need that kind of maybe showed you something that other and I don't want to say other coaches maybe don't see it, but because you started out as a freshman coach, you see it much more differently than a coach who is, let's say, is coming out of college and goes right to the varsity level and is not even near the freshman itself.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that I've always placed more importance on the freshman level than probably most coaches, and that probably is because I was a former freshman coach, and I recognize how important it is, and I recognize the impact that it can have. The Fairfield Ludlow coach John Daly is also a former freshman coach, and I remember coaching against him, in fact. So I'm sure he probably feels the same way too. There's so many things, and the nice thing about freshman practice is most freshman programs, they get their own practice, so you can really establish very you know important pieces of your program, what you believe in, what principles you're gonna emphasize, what are the most important things that all the kids need to learn how to do or know how to do. And it really sets the tone for their next 4 years. So I've always believed that your freshman program has to be really strong, and I don't mean strong in terms of winning. I mean, winning certainly helps, but just strong in terms of the foundation that you're laying, and the principles that you're uh, setting the tone with for the next 4 years. So that probably is because I was a freshman coach, and I recognize how important it is. But yeah, I don't see that ever changing. I'm always going to value the freshman program.
That hard work and the dedication kind of, I think it paid off. I mean, 2019, you won the Division Four state championship. You defeat St. Joe's, and I thought was a very competitive game. But I think just overall, just looking at that season as a microcosm in some way, do you feel like, I mean, was there any sense going into that season that something special was kind of brewing, or was it kind of just like, we're just going to take it one game at a time because I know what I have?
Listen, we went 9-31 the first 2 years, right? So can I sit here and say I expected to go 20-5 like we did? No, I can't say that. But I was optimistic, cautiously optimistic, that we were going to be vastly improved. We basically brought 95% of the minutes that were played the year before, we brought back, including one of our best players who got hurt and missed 15 games, Matt Brand. So there was a lot to be optimistic about, but did I think it would pan out the way it did? No, I wasn't. I wasn't that optimistic. But we caught some breaks. Think things went right for us a couple games, which you need sometimes. But it was just one of those things where the kids really believed in each other. They believed in us. They believed in what we were doing. And when you are so accustomed to losing the way we were, and you start to win a couple games, it's like this momentum just keeps going and going, and it's like it got to a point where we expected to win every single night, and that was a major change in year three. Our first 2 years, I never really felt like the kids expected to win. They hoped to win and they tried to win, but I felt like after we won a few games early on in year three, the kids began to expect to win. And now we're at a point where, our kids go into the season, and we make our goals every year before the year starts. And our goals at the beginning of every year now are to win an FCX championship and to win a state championship. And when I first got here, it was more like, hopefully we can make the state tournament. Maybe we can compete for an FCX playoff spot, and so the goals have really shifted, and that's it's fun to be a part of, and I'm excited that that's who we've become, and we've got to continue to keep progressing and ultimately reach those goals. We want a state championship, Division Four. We'd like to win one at a higher level, a higher division. We have not won an FCX championship, so that's a goal of ours. So, we've made a tremendous amount of progress, but we still have work to do, and we're going to continue to work towards that.
I just want to make a correction. The St. Joe's was the semifinal.
Semis.
The
Yeah.
final was the one against Granby.
Granby.
So I just
Yep.
want to make that correction. I apologize for that. But nonetheless, I thought the road for you guys going, I kind of felt like the St. Joe's game was probably going to be your most difficult game, only because of, knowing the program, knowing the kind of players they have, knowing how they play. Now, I haven't seen them in person, but I've just, talking to various coaches and just reading up on them, in the past. I felt like that if you guys won that game, I felt like I think they're going to win it all. I just felt like you guys had it going, and lo and behold, you won it all.
Yeah. Listen, St. Bernard, the game before that, they had some good players. Max Lee was a very good player that I was very impressed with, and we just they caught us on the wrong night. We played really well against them, and we played them at home, which I think was a major factor in the game. St. Joe's was a very competitive game. They had an All FCI player, Paulini, on their team, and it was a great basketball game, great environment. And then the Granby game, it was we had not much familiarity with them. Obviously, they didn't have much familiarity with us either. And they came out and they punched us in the mouth. They were up 9-1 in the first minute and a half of the game. And I called timeout, and I told the guys, all right, let's settle in. We just took their best punch. Now let's fight back. And we did, and we ended up taking the lead early on in the second quarter, and we never gave it back. So that was an incredible tournament run that we made, where we played some good teams, and we really were playing our best basketball at the end of the year. And I think that's really, really important.
Hey, what's the quote by Mike Tyson? You can all talk until I punch you in the mouth. How do
Right.
you react
Right.
back? I
Right.
mean, I think that toughness that you guys showed in 2019, you could go help out the Green Bay Packers, because when they're down in games, they never come back. They're terrible.
Yeah, my one of my assistants, Mike Tish is a huge Packers fan, so I'm gonna abstain from commenting on the Packers before he gets too upset at what I might say. So
Who's your football team?
I'm a Ravens fan. I've been
Oh,
a Ravens
lucky
fan my
you.
my entire life. I liked the Browns before they became the Ravens, and I went to the Ravens,
Okay.
obviously. So I'm not a front runner, but yeah, I love watching the Ravens. They've been frustrating to watch this year. I think the NFL is starting to figure Lamar out a little bit, but
Can't throw outside the
you know,
numbers.
yeah,
Can't.
well, that's something. Listen, he's 22 years old, so
Uh,
let's give him some time.
he's had 3 years. He's had three
he,
years
he
to
is a
learn.
reigning NFL MVP. Let's
How did he get the MVP though? By running, not by throwing.
he I think he led the NFL in touchdown passes last year or something like that.
I'd have to
So
look, but you might be right. I'd have to look at
I mean, listen, we've got a very bright. The Ravens have a very bright future with Lamar, but he does need to improve his passing. And you know what? I've said this pretty much my whole life.
that. Mhm.
The Ravens need to draft some good wide receivers. They haven't drafted a good wide receiver in their entire existence. So
You got Hollywood.
yeah, I think
Hollywood. I mean,
yeah,
he's a one route guy. I know.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
straight line. I
I
know.
like him, but I don't see him as a true number one. They need
No,
a
no.
they need a number one. So
He's the home run hitter. He's the Tyreek
yes,
Hill.
yep, yep,
That's funny. And speaking of football too, the mustache. I know I want to hit on that real quick. The Aaron Rodgers kind of mustache. No shave November for cancer. Is that correct? If I saw
yep,
that on Twitter,
yep.
can you go
So
a little bit into that?
yeah, so we started a team page on No Shave November website. We're trying to raise money for cancer research. So all our kids are, and myself and some of our coaches are growing mustaches. We're trying to get other teachers involved in the school too. And the idea now, the masks, wearing a mask all day, you can't really see it, but the idea is to raise awareness for cancer and hopefully raise money for cancer too. So I think we've raised something. Last time I checked was something like $420. So we're hoping to get to somewhere around 2,500 if we can. But either way, it's a nice team building thing. It's a nice thing that we're doing together. I know the kids' mustaches aren't coming in quite as strong as mine yet, but we've got Braden and Christian Sweeney are brothers, and they I'm very confident by the end of the month that their mustaches are going to be pretty impressive. So check back in a couple weeks when the kids have all theirs have grown in too.
Is there any way for anybody who's watching this to find it on Facebook, or maybe if they want to donate by any chance?
It's on my Twitter page. It's on our team basketball Twitter page. There's a link. You just click on the link, and then there's on the left side it says make a donation, and you can make a donation. So if anyone wants to do that, that would be awesome.
Any little counts. I understand
Of
with times
course,
being as tough as they are. I mean,
absolutely,
50 cents, a dollar.
anything
If everybody in the world gave a dollar for cancer,
go a
with the
long
amount of
way.
people that we have,
Yep, yep,
that goes a long way, seriously.
for
But hey,
sure.
coach, I really do admire you being able to do that. And also, the program itself, I really do feel like you've built, and it started with your time at Stanford as a freshman coach till now being able to appreciate it. And I can see what you've been able to do, both you and the staff. You have a nice little thing going on here, and it's not become a little thing now. Now it's starting to become a consistent thing. You know what I'm saying?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and that's the goal. It's awesome to have a great run in 2019 like we did, but we were very adamant about the fact that we're just getting started, and that this is not just a one and done type of scenario. We want to sustain success. So last year we got hit really hard with injuries, but we did win our first round state tournament before COVID hit. We did qualify for the FCI playoffs for the second year in a row, which was the first time New Canaan had did that since I think the 90s. And this year, it looks like we're going to have a season of some sort. I'm hoping, and I think we've got a really good team this year too. So we're hoping to sustain success.
Coach, I have you for a couple more minutes. I just want to ask you about how what we alluded to, early in this interview about how the CIAC came out today as far as with basketball being at least postponed for the start. It's looking like it may be after the new year when the season could start. And then I saw today with Lamont about how basketball players will have to wear masks if they want to play. And I know for myself, I know there was a school in Illinois that had a team you wearing masks and playing. I know you spoke earlier before we started this interview about certain programs and such, and I think AAU as well, wearing masks and playing. I kind of just want to get your thoughts about it because I find it intriguing, at least as far as I'm sure you work out, I work out, and I wear a mask, and I'm not doing anything close to what basketball players do, and I have a hard time breathing sometimes where I need a second. So I can only imagine what wearing a mask would do for a basketball player in a high intense environment.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like you alluded to, it is going on in other places. There were AU tournaments this fall and summer that where kids wearing masks. I know some of the prep schools up north are playing scrimmages and games in masks. So it is happening. I'm not a doctor, so I can't sit here and tell you for certain how safe it is or how unsafe it is. That's not for me to judge. But what I do know is that I don't think Lamont or Governor Lamont or the DPH or the CIAC would sign off on anything that wasn't safe. So I'm sure they really thought this through before they decided to make this mitigating strategy. So I know our kids and I know our parents are really excited for basketball season and are willing to do whatever they need to do. So if it's playing in masks, then that's what we're going to do. And we'll manage it. We'll have more subs. We'll have mask breaks. We'll have maybe at the 4 minute mark of every quarter, you take a minute timeout, like a TV timeout, and give the kids a break. We will manage it every way necessary, but the kids just want to play. I know that's statewide. That's all the kids want to do is they just want to play. So whatever it takes to do that safely, we're going to do.
I asked the same question I asked you to various coaches that I've had on this podcast, and I got a lot of interesting responses. The best one was from the girls basketball coach from Han, Coach Treadwell, and he said the team with the most depth will win. And I said, to be honest with you, coach, in no disrespect to the other coaches, I thought that was the best response because it's not like he ignored my question, but he kind of, I don't know if you know Coach Treadwell, but he's a very cerebral coach. And the way he kind of sees basketball is like outside. So if you ask him about a particular play, he'll kind of go in depth and see more into it. And for him to think about the depth aspect, about how you may need to sub more players in and out because hard time breathing, exhaustion. You think about the amount of energy that you're using without a mask. Imagine with one. So it made total sense about having all that depth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, depth will definitely play a part, and it'll also play a part in the situation where one or two kids may need to quarantine, or one or two kids may not be feeling well, and so they stay home. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of possibilities. But what I do know is fall sports throughout the state. I'm more familiar with Fairfield County, but
Hmm.
fall sports have gone on this fall, and they've gone really, from everything that I know, they've gone really well. There have been some situations where teams had to quarantine and you have to sit out for 2 weeks, but they've managed it really well. I know in New Canaan specifically, it's been managed incredibly well, and there haven't been any outbreaks. So, I'm very confident that given what's happened in the fall, I'm very confident that we can manage it well again this winter using all the mitigating strategies that are in place.
Coach, we're just about running out of time, but I really do appreciate you coming on, giving insight about the topic of the day with the mask wearing that the governor of Connecticut said that basketball players have to wear, also to your program and everything else. Really do appreciate you coming on. Great insight all around.
Hey, Christopher, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the coverage, and I hope to see you in a couple weeks out on the hardwood.
That'd be great. Also, you're welcome to come back on anytime during the season as well, because, with everything that's going on and, if there's not going to be fans and there's only going to be a limited amount of people in, depending on if games are broadcasted or not, I'm sure parents and so forth, even media people would want to be able to hear from coaches who are doing the game in this COVID season. So to be able to have you back on would be fantastic.
I'd be happy to do it. That'd be awesome.
Fantastic. That'll wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm on a journey to find them all. Have a good one, everybody, and be well.